Again, welcome to Finding Community Data, Reported Crimes. So this session and all activities of the Center for Victim Research are supported by funding from the Office for Victims of Crime. Although anything I say here cannot necessarily be attributed to the Department of Justice, it is my own thoughts and opinions. So today we're going to be looking at the Crime Data Explorer. This is a web tool provided by the FBI that allows you to see the data on reported crimes that is submitted by local and state law enforcement agencies. We're going to have an overview of that tool. We're going to talk about how you can use that local data, other information that you can get from this site. We'll have a quick demonstration, and then you will have the chance to work with this tool to fill out a simple worksheet. We will stand by to answer any questions that you have as you try to use the tool. So this tool was created by the FBI. It's derived from all of the National Incident-Based Reporting System reports, the NIBRS reports that are voluntarily submitted to the FBI. It also includes summary crime data for those few agencies that have not adopted or are not using NIBRS. It does provide a level of detail for the individual law enforcement agencies. The detail of those reports depends on whether they're using NIBRS or reported summary data. The most recent data on this site is from 2023. It takes a while for states have about four months after the close of a year to submit their data to the FBI. And then the FBI takes quite a bit of time going through that data and cleaning it, looking for obvious errors and processing it so that it can be included in this tool. So that's why there is a bit of a delay. We expect to see 2024 data in just a few months. This is very useful for identifying crime trends in your state and in your local agency. You can learn about the details of various crimes, including details about the demographics of victims and offenders, where the crime was located, whether a weapon was used, and information like that. So over here on a page provided by the Bureau of Justice Statistics, you can see some tables on the percentage of law enforcement agencies that are reporting to NIBRS. Law enforcement agencies have been working on adopting NIBRS for probably about 20 years, I think. It took on some urgency in the past few years as they were told that they all now had to use NIBRS. NIBRS is a much more complicated but more detailed system of capturing crime data than police agencies used in the past. It captures a lot more crimes. It captures a lot more data about each crime incident, but it has consequently taken some effort for agencies to adopt NIBRS. And actually, the larger the agency, the more difficult it has been to switch over from whatever they were doing in the past to NIBRS. And there was not extra funding for law enforcement agencies to make that change. That's why it has taken a while, and that's why there is inconsistent levels of NIBRS engagement across the country. If you look at this map, you will see the level of NIBRS data. Each of these states here, if I put my cursor on it, it shows you, for example, in Washington State, 100% of the population is covered by the law enforcement agencies that are reporting NIBRS data, as opposed to Florida, where only 42% of the population is covered by NIBRS reporting agencies. There's a table below here that tells you the percentage of law enforcement agencies that are reporting. So in Florida, only 18% as of mid-2024 were reporting using NIBRS, but in a lot of states like Delaware, Idaho, it was 100%. So you can see most states are coming along, not all states, so it's a little bit uneven. Now let's go to our page. There we go. I'm sorry, I had the toolbar in my way. All right. So this is the FBI's Crime Data Explorer page, and we're going to click on State and Agency Data. So about 83% of law enforcement agencies are currently collecting and submitting NIBRS data. So once you go here to the Data Explorer page, you'll see you have some filters at the very top. You can first select a crime. There are 4 larger categories of crime: aggravated assault, homicide, rape, and robbery. 4 larger categories of property offense, and then a lot of individual offenses. These top categories are going to show up whether or not a local agency is using NIBRS, because these were also captured by that summary crime reporting. These individual crimes here will only show up if an agency is using NIBRS. For today's exercise, we're going to start with aggravated assault. So you see, you can choose your state. Once you choose your state, and we're just going to go ahead and stick with Alabama, you can select an agency. The agencies are sorted by counties. And for state-level agencies and for those states with tribal jurisdictions, those will be under not specified. Let me see if I can scroll into, I just saw it go by not specified. You can also just type in an agency. So here, let's go ahead and use Orange Beach. And you can select a time frame. Now, this time frame is a little bit misleading. It says 5 years, but as I described to you earlier, there is a lag time between when agencies report their data, or when the crime happened, when they report the data, and when the data gets incorporated in this tool. So even though it says 5 years, there is not data yet for the last year. So just bear that in mind as you're looking at this. So let's scroll down. We've selected aggravated assault for Orange Beach Police Department for the past 5 years. And you can see it displays the numbers of reported crimes and the clearances of those. Remember, a case can be cleared by arrest, closing the investigation, various things. If you find the clearances distracting, you can just click on that and it'll disappear. And there you can see just the numbers of crimes. All right. The other thing that you can do here, aside from the counts, you can change it to look at the rates of crime. So this is numbers of crimes per 100,000 residents. So sometimes rate of crime is preferable. If you want to compare how much crime there is in one jurisdiction over another, the rates are much more useful for that than just the numbers. But as you can see, again, there's so many data points on this, it can be hard to see. So let's say we want to compare at the rate of aggravated assault in this jurisdiction, the Orange Beach Police Department, and across the state and the US. So let's just take out these clearances. And you can see, now you can see the rates of crime that are committed. Let's go back to counts. All right, so the counts of crime is one thing, but the beautiful thing about this tool is that for agencies that are using NIBRS, you get quite a bit more information if you scroll down. So first of all, you'll see demographic information. You can find information about the average age of offenders, the average age of victims. You can also click through these buttons here, find out information about the sex, the race, and the ethnicity. Now, these boxes are only showing you the top categories. You can show more to see everything. All right, along with looking at those basic demographics of offenders and victims, you can scroll down to get additional information about victims, including where the crime occurred. So you may be interested in certain locations in your community, depending on your project. You may also be interested in the victim's relationship to the offender. So you can click on that as well. Let's close those boxes a little bit. All right. Under that, you'll find additional information about the offenses. For example, if you're interested in gun crime, you can see whether weapons were used. If so, what type of weapon? And for NIBRS data, you can see whether the offense is linked to another offense. For summary crime data, agencies could only report the top crime. So let's say there was an aggravated assault, and so they would report that. For NIBRS, you can report not only the aggravated assault, but let's say the offender also committed burglary at the same time, also, committed a kidnapping, whatever it was, those would all show up in the offense linked to another offense. Now, I talked about this being a NIBRS state, and that some jurisdictions are still using only summary data. Let's look at one of those that's only using summary data, and you'll see what I mean. So I happen to know that in Maryland, the Annapolis Police Department, whoop, there we go, was only reporting summary data. Notice on this chart, there was a gap where they weren't reporting data at all. But if you scroll down, you'll see they don't have all of that supplementary data. They did report the number of aggravated assaults, but because they were not using NIBRS, you can't see information about the demographics of the victim and the offender. You can't find information about where the crime was committed or the relationship. You can't find information about weapons or offenses. All right. Let's go back to Orange Beach for just a moment. Now, a change was recently made to this website so that you can't quickly see the number of offenses that occurred within the past year. But there are some ways that you can get that, and let me show you what they are. Down here is this slider bar. The slider bar will allow you to set a date range, but it's very finicky. But as I start using it, you notice up at the top, a date box opens up. So what you would do is look at the date of the last report. When is the last reported data available? That's December of 2023. So you'd want to go up and have your end date. December of 2023. And let's say I want a year. So I'm going to go from January of 2023. Submit. All right. So now if you want a total using this chart, I can't find any way around it. You have to add each of these data points. So 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3. The other thing that you can do is scroll down to see if it's a NIBRS. See some of these data categories where there is likely to be only one data point. So the victim's age I have found is a good one. There are 33 data points for victim age. So I happen to know that matches the number of offenses. Location too, there will only be one. So 33. That's sort of a cheat if you want to get the number of crimes. All right. Now, along with looking at an individual agency, you can also look at the state level. I told you before that there is a difference in the adoption of NIBRS across the states. When you look at this data statewide, you get this additional data point here, and that is the coverage. The Alabama percent of the population that is covered by agencies that are reporting NIBRS. NIBRS has done, Alabama has done a pretty good job. It's just under 100% coverage. But let's say you're in a state that has good coverage, but not quite that good. Let's take Georgia, for example. So one thing that you can do, so you know that the counts that you get this way are going to be less than perfect. They're not going to be fully inclusive. Over here on the sidebar, we have something called NIBRS estimates. And these are state level estimates of the total number of crime. Now, this is, of course, a very complicated statistical process where they have to look at the agencies where the data was missing, find a comparable agency or a comparable period of time. Let's say the agency reported for 3 quarters, but not the 4th quarter. So they might estimate based on what was reported in the previous quarters. Anyway, it takes a while. So say that we want to look at Georgia. Takes a while, so the only 2 estimate years that are available this way, the most recent is 22. So let's look at that. And let's say that we want to look at aggravated assault again. And need to move this bar. There we go, so I can see submit. All right. And so now you can see state level estimates, and you can have a lot more confidence in these estimates because they went through such a process to get them. So there's your offense count by incident. So there were 26,769 aggravated assaults in 2022. Now remember, Georgia has pretty good NIBRS coverage, so that's why you're able to see all of this data. They were pretty confident in those estimates. Let's take a look at a state that we already saw has pretty low NIBRS coverage, Florida. Let me submit that. You'll see this warning pops up. that a lot of the estimates here are suppressed because they did not have enough input data to be able to have confidence in a lot of the estimates. What they can estimate is the total number of incidents, because aggravated assault was one of those summary crime incidents, not a NIBRS, but they don't have information about victim demographics, arrestee data elements. There's just not enough information. And they don't have information about different offenses that are only NIBRS offenses. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hit submit. I'm like, why is that showing data? There we go. So you don't have information about things that were only NIBRS data. But the NIBRS estimates can be very useful, especially for those summary crimes. So that's these, we'll have to go back to the other screen to see those. The aggravated assault, homicide, robbery, and rape. Those are the 4 violent summary assaults. So you will be able to see something about those in these NIBRS estimations. While we're on this sidebar, let's look at a couple of other things. They do have special statistics on hate crimes, because hate crimes are reported a little bit differently. Because remember, hate crime, it can be all different types of crime. The key factor is the motivation. So it doesn't work to use the previous screen for hate crimes, because the element of motivation is a complication. So it's pulled out so you can examine it separately. So when you look at hate crimes for the state or for the particular jurisdiction, I could choose a jurisdiction up here. You can see the motivations that were reported for those hate crimes within this time period. And then you can scroll down, what were the offenses that were committed? Yes, they were motivated by hate, but what were the offenses? And you'll see those here as well. More data about the offender ethnicity, whether the victim was an individual or a business. It's a very interesting and useful information. We'll also see this tab for expanded homicide data. So you can get more information about homicides, including the circumstances. So you can see there's a high number where they do not know the circumstances of the homicide, but they might. Maybe there was an argument, maybe it was drug related, maybe it was gang related. And then 2, there's a breakdown of the victim's relationship to the offender. So if you are interested in intimate partner violence or other violence, you can look there. There's also information about the weapon that was used. Again, this is all in the expanded homicide data here. The last special report that might be of interest to you is the expanded property crime data. Now, maybe a lot of you are not really looking at property crime, but I just wanted to let you know that here you can see information about the location of the property crime and the value of the goods that were stolen. They also, many jurisdictions will report property that was recovered. Not all of them, but many of them will. All right. Let me stop sharing this screen. I'm going to go back with any luck to our slides.
Susan, there was a
Yes.
couple of questions that people posed. Some One question was about clarifying the time frame, the data, and if there was anything retroactive, like if they're adding retroactive data, or do they start at a certain time frame to collect the data, if you're aware of that or know about that.
Yes, so it is worth checking back. Uh, a law enforcement agency can add missing data, or they can clean up or correct previously submitted data. So all you're seeing is the best of what the FBI has from that jurisdiction at that time. It is Agencies are not going to go back and get NIBRS type data from before the whole agency was using NIBRS. You know, it would be too complicated for them to go back into all their old files and gather out or extract all of that detail about the demographics, the location of the crime, and everything. But there is a real chance that if they had been using NIBRS data and there was a quarter or a period of time where the data was missing, that the agency might be in the process of trying to clean that up and submit it later. Um, there are a couple of other places where you might be able to find crime data outside of the Crime Data Explorer. So even though that's my favorite and it's uniform, let me stop here and show you something else. A lot of I cannot talk and see my screen at the same time. There we go. All right. So every state has a state statistical analysis center. And many of these states are also working with crime data. I would say most of them, not all of them, but most of them. They may actually be the agency that's in charge of working with all of the law enforcement agencies to try to clean up their data and then submit it to law enforcement. So this map is on JIRN's website. And I'm just going to grab that and put it in the chat. So you can find your state's statistical analysis center by clicking on your state. And then you'll see the type of information that they have. Also, a number of agencies that are missing the NIBRS data, or that haven't been posting NIBRS data, are the larger agencies, because as I mentioned, it was so expensive and cumbersome to change over to NIBRS. But at the same time, the larger agencies are the agencies most likely to have crime data analysts on staff. And so you might go to that agency's own website and see if you can see reports of recent reports of data. All right. What other questions are out there?
There was a question about, is domestic or intimate partner violence a NIBRS reported crime? I kind of responded to that a little bit by saying like it doesn't have a specific category for that I saw, but they do purport like the victim and offender relationship. So there's ways to like decipher from that if
Right,
it was um like a violent incident with a partner.
right. Yeah, that's how you would do that using the Crime Data Explorer. You would look at, aggravated assault. One of the reasons that I looked at that is because that's usually where this, except for homicide, where the serious or more violent intimate partner incidents will be found. So you would click on that type of crime, and then you would look down at the victim offender relationship to find that. Now, a number of the state statistical analysis centers do have separate reports on intimate partner violence or domestic violence. So that's also worth checking. And of course, we have to remember that this is only reported crime. So this is not going to reveal the vast amounts of violence that are never reported.
There was another question about how were, if you're aware, how were the crime types selected? Um, I did insert a link to the guide about NIBRS that provides some information about
Yes,
it,
you
but
right.
you
You
had
can.
any other insights about why they selected these types of crimes?
Yeah, it took many years to develop NIBRS. And first of all, the summary crime reporting, you may remember, um, they had, I think it was 6 categories of violent crime and I think about that many of property offenses. And every state had to think in terms of their statutes and what crimes they would count within those broad categories. But then a lot of crime got left out because crimes like human trafficking did not fit into any of those summary crime categories. Identity theft didn't fit. So that's why now when you go to the Crime Data Explorer, and let me go back to there. I'm sorry, let me, oh, I'm in the property crime page. All right. So here you will see all of these other offenses that NIBRS now captures. But if you think about it, it is a process, right, for every state to figure out which statutes they have, which crimes would fall into each of these categories, then to train everybody to make sure that their data reporting system, their internal systems tie to these categories of crimes. But you can see why NIBRS is so much preferred over summary crime data, because you have all of these different offenses now being tracked, not just that handful. All right. Let's go back to our slides. Jasmine, are there any other questions that are outstanding?
There's one more question about if so they're saying often felonies committed on this tribal lands are prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office. Would that data be in the state level systems? If you're aware of that. Any
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Yes, often felonies committed on tribal lands are prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office. Would that data be in the state level systems?
That is a good question. I'm going to have to take a look at that. And during this period when you all will be on your worksheets, I'll see if I can find that. Now, there is data if the tribal law enforcement agency were involved and if they reported the crime, then that should be captured through the Crime Data Explorer. But where it is considered a federal crime and let's say the FBI were the ones who took the crime report, surely that's available on here somewhere. I just have to think about where, right? So again, this would be not the agency that's prosecuting, but the agency that took the report. But while we go into this next phase, I'll see if I can find that information. Okay, so now we're going to give you a chance to work with the worksheet and see if you can get some basic information from one of your local law enforcement agencies. So using the QR code here, or we're going to drop this forms link in the chat. For people who are watching the recording later, we're going to have a link to that form in the chat. Go ahead and call up that worksheet. At the top of the worksheet, you will see a link to the Crime Data Explorer. And go ahead and try this out. Another good reason to do this now is there are a lot of websites that are changing or going down for a time. It's a great opportunity to grab the information that's there today that you might be able to use in the near future. And it's just a great opportunity to try out.